Hi, I'm Dave Bossert,
And I'm Alan Coats, son of Claude Coats.
and we're here to talk about Claude Coats, Walt Disney's Imagineer, the making of Disneyland from Toad Hall to the Haunted Mansion and beyond. I'm going to start, Alan, because this really was one of those serendipitous moments, I think. I had known Claude Coats at the very beginning of my career at the Walt Disney Animation Studios. They moved us off the main studio lot in Burbank to a building across the street from Imagineering in Glendale. And when we moved into that facility, we had access to Imagineering's commissary, or their cafeteria. And I was an early person, and so was Claude. And I would go over to the commissary when I got to the office to get, something to eat or get a cup of tea or a donut or whatever. And I happened to run into this very tall, well-dressed, distinguished-looking gentleman, and said hi, and he introduced himself, and I introduced myself, and I knew exactly who he was. I mean, he was a legend in my mind because he had painted some of the finest backgrounds in the classic Disney animated films of anybody. I mean, if you look at Geppetto's workshop in Pinocchio, or the wishing well sequence in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, he did color styling on Lady and the Tramp, and worked on so many of these classic films. And, I got to know him over about an 18-month period, and then he retired. And sadly, about a year after he retired, he passed away. And so I felt very fortunate that I got to meet him and talk with him on a regular basis for that period of time. And decades later, I go to a conference of animation historians, and I'm going into the conference room, this large area, and there's a tall guy coming towards me with a baseball cap on, and he sees my lanyard and my name badge, and he says, "Hey, Dave Bossert, I just got your Dolly and Disney book at Barnes and Noble." And I have to tell you, I was enamored. I was like, my God, my book is at Barnes and Noble. How cool. I've arrived, and I just caught his, and I said, thank you. And I caught his name, Alan Coats, as he walked by. And I thought, I didn't know him. And I thought, he's got to be related to Claude Coats. So I went tracking him down during a break in the conference, the morning break. I went looking for him, and apparently he had gone home because he wasn't feeling well. And so a mutual friend of ours put us together via email. And I really just wanted to get together with Alan and just tell him that I knew his father, and his father was a super nice guy and was really nice to me at the very beginning of my career, while he was, really in the twilight of his career, and a twilight of a 54-year career, I should say. And so Alan and I agreed to have lunch, and we met up for lunch, and I told him all these nice things about his dad, and we talked about some of the books I had written. And at the end of the lunch, Alan looked at me and said, "Would you be interested in writing a book on my father?"
Dave, that was a wonderful story. Thank you about our initial meeting and how everything began, because I had been asked by another publisher to write a book about my father. I worked with my father at WD or WED. It was actually WED. And he said, well, write a book about your father, and or you and your father and son angle. That would have been interesting too. But I didn't really want to do that. I thought there needed to be a third party objective sense about my father. And Dave knew Claude, and I think it was a perfect fit because I had admired Dave's work, and I did see Dolly and Destino, or Dolly and Disney. It was a really good book. And so I knew that this guy, yeah, he could do the job. He could write about Claude. So it fell into place very well. And it was a very long process. Much of it written during the pandemic, when we couldn't go anywhere anyway. So we were going back and forth every day on this. And I was sending Dave photos and materials and letters and documents and original art that my father had done that's in the book, the gallery of my father's artwork is at the back of the book. So it was a perfect fit. And I'm just so delighted with the way the book turned out. It's just a beautiful piece of work.
You know, when you go through and look at his career, you know, we kind of broke out that first 20 years of animation and then the first 15 years of Disneyland, essentially, roughly 15 years. It's like 1955, 54, 55 to 1970. And then after 1970, he's working with his son, Alan, on Walt Disney World, you know, and then he goes on and he does work on Tokyo Disneyland, Epcot, Paris. So you really have three distinct phases of Claude's career: animation, 1935 to 1955, Disneyland, 1955 to 1970, roughly, and then 1970 until he retires, where he's working on Florida, Tokyo, Paris, and I think one of the last projects he did was something for Tokyo before he retired, and of course Epcot. But you know, to me, after having many conversations, we sort of zeroed in on that first 15 years of Disneyland.
Well, the book it does touch on my work with my father a bit later, but as Dave said, it's really about the earlier years. I was still a kid, really, and although I was working at WED, I wasn't really working with my father until later, until we started working together on the Magic Kingdom in Florida, in Orlando, and that's when I really began my career as an Imagineer, working with my father. But I didn't work with him one-on-one every day. It was always a team effort. I worked with so many different people, and as Dave mentioned, I was fortunate to move around in the company. I too got tired of what I started doing when I first worked at Disney. I had shot so many hippos in the Jungle Cruise that I said, I just can't take another trip down the jungle rivers of adventure. So they said, what do you want to do? Because I was fortunate to have a father that I could kind of say, well, I'll work with my dad at WED. So they put me in the model shop, and that's where I started there. But I did get to move around a lot. And then eventually when I was in Florida, that's when I started working with my father in a more direct way, as we were doing the show installations for the Magic Kingdom and getting it ready to open October 1st, 1971. So, and that's kind of what happened. And after that, I worked with him on the first new show to open at Walt Disney World after the grand opening, and that was in Tomorrowland. It was an attraction called If You Had Wings.
So the book is available wherever people get their books. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. If you have a local bookstore that you like to support, you can go in. If they don't have it in stock, you can ask them, they can order it for you. If you'd like to get an autograph copy by myself and Alan, you can go to theoldmillpress.com. theoldmillpress.com, and you can order it there, and that'll be signed by myself and Alan, and it'll be shipped to you. I have a website, davidbossert.com, and there's there's a tab for my books. You can look at all the books I've written. There's also a tab of articles. There's about 60 articles I've written on various aspects of animation and Disney history.
You can go to claudecoats.com and look at his artwork in a gallery right there online, and read his bio, his filmography, his imaginography, and get some more information about Claude on that site, claudecoats.com.